Once we have developed a thesis statement, we have a general idea about how we want to organize the points in the essay. That is, how we're going to organize the paragraphs in the body. The basic organizational strategies are chronological, that is, as things occur in time, emphatic, which is emphasis from least to most important or from most to least important. We can start with the least important and build, but most texts will encourage you to start with the most important and then provide additional information. But that way you give your reader your strongest point first. And finally, spatial organization. That is how things are organized in space. Near to far, left to right, top to bottom. It is used primarily in description. Organization is determined by your perspective and the emphasis or the point of the description. Earlier and often I talk about describing a firefighter in full gear. If I'm a child peeking out from under a bed, then the first thing I see are the firefighter's boots. If I'm standing in a room and I see the firefighter come in, the first thing I see is the mask that he wears. It may be that the first thing that I notice is the sound of his breathing through a mask. So it depends on your purpose and your perspective as to where you begin with spatial organization. The way we organize our paper is a decision that we make based on what we want to accomplish, back to our purpose. Organization is one way that the writer appeals to logic. We consider why the strategy works for a particular topic, the idea being expressed. Why does putting the support in a particular order strengthen the idea? After choosing a logical order, spatial, chronological, emphatic, review the thesis and again make adjustments as necessary so that the subtopics and the statement in the thesis reflect one another. If we have ABC in the thesis, then the subtopics should be ordered ABC. If we decide we want to order them differently, then we need to make sure that both the thesis and the order of the body paragraphs is the same. It can change at any time, but the order that the topics are introduced in the thesis sets up the expectation for the reader. The organization helps the reader see the relationships between the ideas, and the reader expects to find the same topics in the same order in the body of the essay. This is something that is particularly important, and make sure that you pay attention as you make necessary revisions during the process of organizing and writing papers. Once you have organized the body of the essay, that is, the paragraphs themselves, you understand that each of those subtopics is developed or supported with a body paragraph, sometimes more than one. But then within each body paragraph, we need to decide how to best develop or support the idea. This support is related to the paragraph topic, and it always connects back to the thesis, or ideally connects back to the thesis. One of the things that we notice about support is that it is appropriate. That is it reliable? Has the writer given the reader something that is legitimate? Is it representative? You want to give examples or illustrations that are typical, not that are unique. And is it sufficient? Do you provide enough information that the reader can understand the point being made? Organization appeals to logic. It helps support the idea. Support also provides credibility. That is, if the writer is giving good information, the reader sees that writer or the author as being credible or reliable or dependable. So what type of evidence do you need to develop the topic? You can use one type of evidence. You can use a combination of types of evidence. The body paragraphs may all three use the same type of development, or they may use different types, or they may use different combinations. Of course, there may be more than 3 body paragraphs, or there may be fewer, but that's sort of the rule of thumb. So if you have questions, you can always look back to information about the paragraph, because that block or unit is what we use to develop the thesis. Body paragraphs are to be developed in such a way that they support the topic of the paragraph, and they also support the idea being presented in the thesis. So how do we develop a paragraph? We can add examples to illustrate the idea. Again, representative. We can tell a story that illustrates the point you're making. Just like you can tell a story for the whole body, you can tell a story that develops the idea of a topic sentence. You can define terms. It's important that the reader understands what you mean, particularly if the term is something that is questioned, the meaning is questioned. Be sure you define it. You can always use a dictionary definition. Go to the dictionary, tell the reader where you got the definition, or you can simply define it so that the reader understands what you mean by it. We can provide descriptions. We can provide factual information that we gather from sources. We can provide reasons to support an idea. We can use our own authority, our personal observation or experience to support an idea. We can use quotations. Obviously, you can use source material, but if you do, you provide a signal phrase. That is, you introduce the source according to Kate Daly, according to Professor Jones, and we provide appropriate credit, which means that we tell where the information comes from, and we use a parenthetical citation with a page number at the end of the sentence. At this point, you're still working to understand how to do that. Try it out so that you get a little practice if you want. Sensory details are always a good idea because you want the reader to experience the idea, and concrete details can be provided through sense impressions. Using strong nouns and action verbs help the reader see. Strong nouns are better than a noun and an adjective. So if I say the young woman wore sneakers, that's a stronger word than that she wore athletic shoes. If I say he walked down the hall, that's very different than telling you that he swaggered or sauntered or hopped or skipped. Again, use action verbs, but the more specific the word is, the better it helps your reader understand. These are all different ways that you can develop, different types of evidence that you can use. Remember, we often use support, evidence, and development as interchangeable terms, but they always come back to how you support an idea for your reader. As with the paper as a whole, you need to identify organizational strategies for each paragraph. Are you organizing it chronologically? If you're telling a story, that makes sense. Are you organizing it emphatically? If you're giving reasons, that makes sense. Are you organizing it spatially? If you're describing something that you're seeing, a scene, a place, then certainly spatial would be an appropriate organizational strategy. It is a way that the writer appeals to logic, that is, organization. You should know why you're choosing this strategy for this topic. How does this order, chronology, emphasis, or spatial arrangement help to strengthen the idea? So organization is our next step. We generated ideas. We chose the ones that we felt were the strongest and developed them a little bit further. We developed a thesis statement that provides our point and our points of support, and then we decide how we want to organize those based on the most logical organizational strategy. These are the things we do when we're planning an essay. Thinking through this before you write makes the writing process much easier.